Hi, and welcome to our series today, our fourth part in a series of fatherhood. And this is Strength Through Self-Disclosure. We're glad to have Dr. Nathan Wood with us today. He is the I-RAFT Clinical Director and the Couple and Family Therapy Program Director. This is being presented by Work-Life Benefits, the Department of the University of Kentucky, Working Parents. And we're glad to have everyone here today.
Thank you, Hazel. And it's good to be here and thanks for our attendees. And also I just wanted to do a shout out to Work Life here at UK. They put together a lot of amazing things and I'm grateful to be a part of it. So uh, shout out to all the hard work that y'all do. Yeah, so today is the last and final fatherhood series that we did. Um, if you want to, there's a list and it'll be on YouTube as well of the other three parts. And this is somewhat of a culmination, a little bit of the other workshops or presentations that we did. But it is a standalone as well. So there's not a huge dependency on the previous workshops that we did. So we'll go ahead and get started for today. So just a brief, I'll do a brief introduction here. Maybe get on PowerPoint. Um, I grew up in southern Idaho. I'm the youngest of six kids by quite a bit. There's 10, almost 11 years between me and my next sibling. Um, but born and raised in southern Idaho. I did all my schooling, my bachelor's degree in psychology from Utah State University, and then my master's and Ph.D. Degrees in marriage and family therapy at Brigham Young University. And I am a AMFT, so AMFT stands for the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. I'm an AMFT clinical fellow and approved supervisor. And as Hazel said, I am the director of the I-RAFT clinic here on campus. The I-RAFT clinic is our training clinic for graduate students training to become licensed marriage and family therapists in the future. So each of our amazing intern therapists get to do at least 300 hours of clinical services, being the therapist in the room, under supervision of licensed professionals such as myself. And those services are available to anyone in the state of Kentucky. Um, we offer individual, relational, financial therapy. We do have financial coaching services available, which are free, and they're free to anyone in the community. So if you're an employee, uh, go to HR's website and they have some great financial coaching resources. Um, and students need to go to the Money Cats Clinic, but for just the non-UK employees, we do have free financial coaching, which helps with um, things like budgeting or basic financial skills, and not retirement planning or anything like that at all. So a little plug there, and we do offer play therapy services for children as well. So we're a full service clinic, and like I said, our intern therapists, our graduate students are amazing clinicians and provide a lot of help to a lot of people. Okay, so shameless plug out of the way. We'll get into the main topic. So the billing for this, or the summary we talking about, I mentioned about getting physically stronger, lifting weights. Psychological and emotional strength works a lot the same way, and how do we um, demonstrate that strength through self-disclosure? So we'll try to tie all of these elements together. But first things first, we should probably get some definitions under our belt so we're all on the same page talking about the same thing. Weirdly enough, it's actually quite hard to dive into the scientific literature to get a single definition of psychological strength. So I ran across a couple that I think were particularly helpful for our discussion today. Um, this one, a particular way of thinking, behaving, and feeling that is authentic and energizing to the user and enables optimal functioning, development, and performance. I like this definition of psychological strength as it relates to how we feel internally um, as we demonstrate that strength. A corollary definition I also thought was helpful. It gives us a set of attitudes, emotions, and cognitions that allow us to be more resilient in difficult and stressful situations. And I think parenting oftentimes could be described as a difficult and stressful situation, depending on the day. Um, at least that's been my experience. One thing I forgot to mention, I am the father of three children, all who are adults now, and I have three grandchildren, which I probably shouldn't start talking about because that would, bragging about my children and grandchildren is my favorite pastime. Um, but I can speak somewhat from definitely from experience. Parenting has its moments of difficulty and definitely stress, and psychological strengths help us navigate those times. And related to psychological strength is this idea of character strength, or how do we develop emotional or psychological strength. And I loved this quote. It's not about ignoring the negative. It strengths help us overcome life's inevitable adversity, similar to our previous definition. So as we get into that, we have to start thinking about, okay, so it's not about avoiding the negatives. What are some examples? Here's one example. You can't be brave without first feeling fear. You can't show perseverance without at some point wanting to quit. You can't show self-control without having temptation. If you're not being tempted, there's nothing to do with self-control. Like the caffeine in this, I'm have some self-control, but if a fridge has Mountain Dew with some mango puree, it's gonna get consumed by me. Um, so I need to improve my self-control, but we can't have self-control unless there's a temptation there. And you can't show vulnerability or strength and vulnerability without self-disclosure. So next definition we got to work out is, what in the world is self-disclosure? And this one's a little bit easier to define. Self-disclosure is just that, talking about your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, your memories, etc. Not terribly complicated in the idea. Um, as they say, sometimes the devil's in the details. Just because it's an easy idea to understand does not mean it's an easy thing to do. And especially not an easy thing to do when we are in stressful and challenging situations. And we'll get into this a little bit more here in a bit, but especially as men and fathers, um, self-disclosure during times of stress is sometimes the last thing in the world we want to do, or that our culture or world has told us we should be doing as quote unquote men. Um, and so I'm going to hopefully challenge some of those ideas today. And based on my experience as a therapist for over 20 years now and supervising, I'm not even going to try to count how many hours of therapy and supervisees. And I feel like I have a fairly good background to kind of help give you some ideas of how self-disclosure can strengthen ourselves as well as our relationships, and what maybe a strength, a way to have a masculine strength that's really powerful in our relationships. So building strength. So we have the metaphor of like physical exercise. So I did run across this today. I'm a big Snoopy fan. Um, but I saw this today. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Um, what's so great about lifting two angel food cakes? But as we think about a metaphor for strength training, there's a few key elements that are lie in strength training that we can absolutely apply here to building our self-disclosure muscles and demonstrating that strength. So our key elements, what are they? One, we have to have a recognition of the need or a desire to get stronger. So those of you that are here or watching in the future, I think that's a good sign already. It's like, okay, this is something I'm interested in. Like, I want to learn more about this. A recognition of the desire, need. Sometimes it comes like, I'm not connecting with my kids like I want to. Or a very common refrain I hear from fathers in the therapy office or just in talking with friends is, why does my teenager hate me so much? Why can't I get through to my teenager? For some reason, it's always like it's the teenager. Um, yeah. So sometimes that prompts the recognition or need, like, okay, how do I build this, my psychological or slash emotional relational muscles? Um, is the recognition of, wait, I thought I could lift this weight, but I'm struggling. This is difficult. And the next step is you have to find your why. And that's really critical. When we run, again, when we're running into like therapy scenarios, oftentimes there's a lot of blame getting thrown around the room. So it's not my fault. Well, they just need to change. If my kids just listen to me more, if this, if this person did that, this person did that, then life would be easier. Well, there's some truth to that. That's not going to help you as a dad or as a father get stronger. Um, you have to find your why. Like, what is it about these relationships that matter to you personally? That's your why, and you have to be able to hold on to that why. Was the when you think about like what is I know you're not an ideal father, but if you think about some fatherhood models out there that you would aspire to, what is it about those ideas that are important to you? Because we can't control anybody else. I can't even control what thoughts pop into my head. I can have some choice about what to do with those thoughts once they pop in, and I have some control of what to do with feelings or emotions when I become aware of them. But even those I can't fully control when and how they enter my heart or my mind. So I have more chance of being in control of how I respond internally to those events and how I definitely respond externally. What I do with my voice, what words do I say, what actions or behaviors do I display. So finding my why will help. Will help. Finding your why will help you give a litmus test or some direction of how you can respond because it's something that you think is important, something that you value um, as a dad, as a father. Um, in spite of maybe how others are responding. It doesn't mean you ignore their response because sometimes their response is a cue that we might need to make some changes. Um, but it gives you a starting point. Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, and wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He quotes another philosopher, Nietzsche, who said, he with a why to live for can bear almost any how. And so when you're working out and trying to build muscle, from what I'm told, I don't work out a lot. But when I watch people that work out a lot or talk to my son who enjoys working out, they're like, oh yeah, feel the burn, love the burn. Like it is not pleasant to build strength. There's adversity there. And it's there on because you were inviting that adversity to do those the push-ups and lift the weights, and the burn has meaning because they have the why. It's indicative, the difficulty is indicative of building that strength. It's not avoided. And that's oftentimes what can happen in our relationships. We are tempted to avoid the difficult things, but it's the difficult things that build strength. So having a why that's meaningful to you and that can positively impact others will help you feel the burn, maybe not love the burn, but the difficulties will have positive meaning rather than just this is hard. If you're, again, from what I'm told by my son who loves to weightlift, um, if you want to build strength, it has to be intentional, has to be active and consistent effort. Um, you want to get stronger, you're going to have to work at it really every day and keep at it. Yeah. And same thing, you don't get stronger by looking at the weights. I've tried, it doesn't work, trust me. You don't lose weight or get more physically healthy by reading about it. And if full transparency, you're not going to be able to build your emotional strength or your psychological strength by watching this video or attending today. The only way any of us can do that is through direct experience and practice and exposure. We have to act on it, and then that gives us the ability to evaluate how we're doing, and that's the last element. So if I'm weightlifting, I have to know what my max is. This is the most weight I can push or lift or squat. That knowing where your current limit is the key to create that plan to increase your strength. And so there's a constant evaluative process. So then we practice, lift. And then when we move up, then we can test our new max. Have we grown? So let's be really clear. I'm not saying pick fights with your children or partners. Um, Life will bring more than enough challenges and experiences your way to be able to practice these skills and strengthen your own psychological strength and emotional strength as a parent. Yeah, so you don't need to create anything, but it'll be there uh, waiting for you. Okay. So this presentation today, we have a few more tips. We're about 15 minutes or so worth of content, but I wanted to make sure I have enough space to do some Q&A. So we're gonna jump straight into some tips for helpful self-disclosure. And the first tip, I don't have a point for. The very first tip, though, is the keyword is I. Using that word, that's a good sign you're on the right track for a self-disclosure, is if you start with I. Um, I think, I feel, there was this thing that happened, me, like me. These are, you're getting closer to self-disclosure. I think you're being a jerk is not a self-disclosure that we're talking about in terms of self-disclosure. That's you're not gonna go really well, depending on who you're saying that to. Well, actually, for most people, because you're most likely to get that kind of response back to you and more blame or more accusation, and that's not going to help build relationships or repair relationships. So the really talking about the thoughts and the feelings that you are experiencing as is without um, necessarily you don't necessarily have to bring in the other contextual factors or your thoughts and feelings about other people or judgy uh, in a judgy way. So, a couple of things to keep in mind about self-disclosure. Self-disclosure does pull the focus to you. And again, and then that is absolutely okay. It's about the timing of that self-disclosure. So one of the first tips is to, as the on the slide says, you got to read the room. Um, does this moment need to be about you? Because as soon, like I said, as soon as you start telling a story about your experience, as soon as you start telling the other person about your ideas and your feelings, that moment does start to become about you. And like I said, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's about that timing that needs to happen. So if someone else is talking and they're telling you a story, sometimes taking some time and letting it be about them more and asking them follow-up questions can be a really powerful way for you to get to know them better. And then if you telling your story or your experience moves that attention and focus, it's probably going to be a much better received by the other person. All right, so building on that, here's some extra tips. I tend to think in algorithms a lot. So if this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do that. And I find a lot of the guys I work with and a lot of the guys that come into therapy appreciate that as well. Um, so here's some guidelines. If the other person shared a personal story or feeling with you first, simply identify the emotion you heard in their statements. So this is one thing where you could go back, I think looking at our very first presentation where we talk about the logic of emotions. You can get some more insight because it's, again, sounds simple. Sometimes it's challenging because not everybody that's talking to you is telling that you feeling words. You have to deduce it a little bit based on some nonverbal um, expressions, you know, if they sound angry, they might be angry. But if they sound angry or defensive, they actually might be scared or hurt. There could be some little bit softer stuff underneath there, more vulnerable kind of things. So one thing you do is show empathy that you heard in their story or the emotions for this. Like, wow, it sounds like that was really fun. Like, especially with kids, even adolescents if you're picking up on some of those facial expressions, being like, wow, you're really proud of that. That you're this seems like this was so exciting for you. That's amazing. Or like, yeah, you seem maybe sad or or that seems like this has been really hard for you. Okay, dads, if you learned that, if nothing more, from any of these fatherhoods workshops, if you learn to do this one thing, it sounds like clickbait title on the internet, but I promise if you learn this one thing, the people around you will be coming to you to talk because you, by doing this, that one little identify the emotion that they might be experiencing underneath the story they're telling you, they will feel heard and validated and loved as a person, and they will want to come back for more. Um, Also, huge pro tip for romantic relationships as well. Really powerful. So, side note on this, if the other person is talking about a problem or a challenge they're facing, see 2.1. Again, empathize with them first. Empathize with the feeling that they are experiencing first. Then ask them some follow-up questions about what their thoughts or plans are about this problem. And then read the room if needed. Then you can share your ideas or stories with them. Again, it's especially with kids, asking them about what they want to do or what they think their options are. They oftentimes have a really good ideas about how they want to handle something. And when they say it, and then you as a parent say, yeah, I think that's a great idea, that helps them build confidence in themselves. And because you listened and empathized, that builds their confidence in you as a person that they can come to bring their problems to, and that it's okay for them to be vulnerable. That you can hear not just what they said, but you can hear the feeling underneath what they said. And then you end up encouraging them to follow some of their own ideas. It's amazingly powerful. Again, good tip for from your romantic relationships. If at that point, then you could say, hey, I have some ideas. Would you like to hear them? They're more likely to say, heck yeah. And then you can tell them your story, your experiences, or maybe there's some things they hadn't thought of, and you can add it. And that way, again, you can be, it's perfectly fine to say, I had a similar situation when I was your age and I was feeling the exact same thing. I was scared, or I wasn't sure if I was going to get in trouble, or you can start telling those your own journey, and they will hear it in a lot deeper way. And it's, again, really powerful. Again, good tip for if it's your, just a side note, I know this is a parenting workshop, but for your romantic partners, ask them, what do they think? What are they planning, or what do they see as their options, or what do they want to do next, if anything, with the story? And they're like, I just wanted you to listen. Check. Good job. If they say, well, I want some advice, gentlemen, still ask, still listen more before you give your advice, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship. The ladies in your life, they're wonderfully capable. They likely know already what they want to do. They're coming to you because you're their person, to feel like part of a team. And sometimes giving advice, not your best move. It's how can we empower the people around us? Because true strength is not having to prove you're strong. I think that's where sometimes as dads and partners we get in trouble when we feel a little bit weak or inadequate. We feel like we need to get strong. But true strength is knowing you're strong and being able to be there for the other people, and how do we empower them? And again, it invites them back into our world and our lives, and we're able to we don't have to seek that value. Like it becomes mutually reinforcing. Okay. Practice what you preach. This is important enough of a tip that it needs its own slide. So we could go on, all the things we wish our children would do, right? So when I think about my own parenting moments and other parenting moments, these are the ones that came right immediately to the top of my head. We want our children to own their mistakes, take responsibility, if everybody else was doing it, if everybody else jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? Like as parents, we have very little tolerance oftentimes for blame. We want our children to be accountable, take responsibility, own your stuff, own your mistakes. It's good for you. This is how you grow. Okay, all wonderful advice, all really great values. So my question for myself and those watching um, is this, what example are we giving our children if we can't model what we expect of them? Because everything that first bullet point um, is really important. Being able to own our mistakes, take responsibility, um, because our decisions, what we do, those are the things that are under our control. We can't control what other people do or say, but we can choose how we respond. So yeah, we we need to demonstrate it. And this is where the strength through self-disclosure starts to come in, is it is not fun, speaking from personal experience, it is not fun to go to your even 5-year-old or 8-year-old, and definitely challenging with the 15 or 16-year-old to go into that room, knock on their door, and say, you know what? I shouldn't have responded to you that way. That wasn't fair to you, and I apologize. I'm sorry. I was, and don't blame it on your bad day. It's like, well, my boss just got under my skin. Like, nope, that's blaming, right? Our decision and how we responded, that's ours. And so to be able to go in and say, you know what? I ask you all to take responsibility. I made a mistake. You are important to me. You deserve better. And I will do better. I will work on doing better. It's a it's a game changer because you're practicing what you preach. If you're holding your kids accountable in that way, by leading by example is huge because it reinforces the thing you want them to learn. Because if they can see you do it with them, and if they can see you do it with others, profound. It's the lesson will get internalized at a deep level. I won't swear, but we'll just use the initials. Children learn by watching, and they do have amazing BS meters. They will, if we don't practice what we preach, the kids will know, like, they're smart. They learn really quickly about social etiquette and protocol, and they learn really quickly what you tell them. And then if we don't live by that example, they also learn implicitly what we say and what we do. Is it really that important? Or it's like, yeah, okay, I know you said that, Dad, but whatever, that we can start to get dismissed, and that's never fun for any parent. Um, and if you want to regain that credibility, practice what you preach. Um, and yeah, if you want this long lasting, deep respect and appreciation from your kids, being able to say you're sorry is really, really, really critical for them to see you as parents resolve your differences in helpful ways, and to have your kids, if you are in a partnered relationship, for your children to see you apologize to your partner and vice versa. They will internalize that, and their adult romantic relationships will they will more likely mirror that in their relationship. So you're actually helping them set them up for the future in really meaningful ways as well. Yeah. So this is probably one of the most challenging. This was the one scenario when I made this presentation. The strength through self-disclosure is this one. Owning when we make mistakes, when we fall short of our own expectations, our own values, and taking ownership. Like I said, it's not fun. It's lifting a weight, and it gets easier. It feels easier, just like lifting any weight. The burden is easier, not because the burden is lighter, it is because we are stronger. And so it feels lighter with that practice and that lifting and setting those examples. Okay. Here's some final tips, and then I have a couple final thoughts. So these are more, you're looking for something to say. These are all really great self-disclosures. They're important to me. I get scared too. I made a mistake. I'm so excited for you. I'm proud of you. Thank you. Don't underestimate the whole gratitude thing. If your child or even your partner, I've been married for 30 years now, and my wife still will say thank you, even if it's something I've done, a few hundred times or thousands of times. That gratitude, that recognition goes a long ways. And kids, even teenagers, even if they don't show it, you tell them thank you, it means a lot. And the last one, the last self-disclosure, that means a lot, no matter who you say it to. If you say it with feeling, is that one. Okay. So with that, we have about 20 minutes left. So thank you for hanging out, and any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Or if our moderators for this have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat as well. And if not, I do have one other element I can touch on really quickly. Was there a chat? All right. So as guys, when we relate to others, we usually relate through stories or ABC back when I was younger, which was a long time ago. Worldwide sports, it was the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. The guys, when we relate to each other, we usually relate to each other through like hero stories. So my friend tells me a hero story. It could be an agony of defeat story, either way. It's like, oh, this really cool thing happened, or man, I wiped out so bad on this. And then as to relate, I'm going to tell a story. People watching guys talk, they call it sometimes one-upsmanship. And maybe a little bit of that's true, but it's oftentimes as men how we relate and connect to each other. Like, so, oh, you tell a story, I'm going to tell you a similar story about my experience. Um, so the intent is to connect by telling our stories. And so this idea of self-disclosure, that I think that's what a lot of guys originally think of when we talk about self-disclosure, is like, well, I told them, my partner was telling me this, or my kid was telling me that. So I told them a story about when I was their age, and it really just kind of fell apart. Depending on the person you're talking to, they may not understand that might be a default response for men, is like, we're trying to relate, we're trying to connect, but it's experienced as invalidating or misunderstanding on the part of the other person. So one thing we can do if you're getting that kind of glazed over look in your kid when you start telling them the same story that you may have told them a few other times, just say, you know what, sorry, I've told you that story. Tell me more about blank. Get them talking a little bit more, empathize. Oh, well, what? Tell me what you want to do. Tell me about that. What do you want to do next? Or what do you see as your options? I think that's a great option. Or it's like, would you like to hear what I might do? Or would you like to hear one of my stories that relate? That alone, just that little tweak, um, again, can make a massive difference in the person we're talking to understanding our intent as men to tell the story. And you might also be picking up, I'm using some examples where I'm asking permissions, like, would it be okay if I shared with you? Yes, I would recommend you say that even to your 5-year-old and not assume just because you're the dad, um, not assume that you can just automatically go in and they should just listen to you. Um, if you kind of follow some of the steps we're talking about, they will absolutely listen to you and they'll be prepared to hear you, which is even more important. Um, and actually hear what you have to say and your stories and your advice and your ideas because they will have felt heard um, in the first place. Um, yeah. So the strength through self-disclosure, practicing what you preach, it takes practice. It's challenging. Not gonna lie, it absolutely is challenging. You all know that already. And it can make the difference in relationships. And we don't, as men, won't need to pursue as much to make those connections because those connections will be built and strengthened over time. Oh, okay. Yes, the chat, I have many things in my life that I think by just owning them, I'm utilizing, benefiting from them. It's as if the proximity was enough to gain the benefit. It's not, and I'm aware that this much of this, um, it's not silly because the awareness is the first step. Like if lack of awareness, so we go back to the weight building or weightlifting metaphor, awareness of where our strength is right now is that first step. And so just that practice afterwards, the true learning comes through implementation and the strength building comes from that lift. Um, and yeah, it's impossible to get stronger. Um, Not impossible, but it's very difficult to get stronger without having awareness of a need to get stronger. So often, like I said, I don't work out a lot. Um, and if you saw the from here down, you'd be like, yeah, he definitely does not work out. But if I go on a hike with the grandkids or go on a hike with my wife or something like that, and the next day I feel sore, like, oh, yep, that hurts. Yep, okay. That becomes awareness. Like, okay, what do I want to do with the awareness now? Do I want to exercise a little bit better so I'm not so sore the next day? So sometimes our experiences that hurt in hindsight become that, oh, like, oh, I may have just hit my weight limit max or my lifting max. So now I can develop a plan or a strategy to see if I can get stronger in that area. Yeah. So I don't think it's silly at all. All right. With that, thank you all for hanging out with us. And I just saw the chat. Reinforce it. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's something for all of us. The chat said for YouTube out there that reinforces I do not have discipline. Um, I don't think so. That's something that we all work on. It's all of us. I think that would be true for all of us because growth does not come in destination. Growth comes in journey. And as long as we're striving, some days are better than others. Yeah. All right. On that note, I think we'll call it good for today. Thank you all for hanging out. Thanks again to HR for this opportunity, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. We really appreciate this excellent information today. So this link will be in our follow-up email, and you can find it on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.